Welcome, Curious Minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're plunging into something that really echoes through so many lives, often without us even realizing. We're talking about the lifelong shadow, but also the surprising gifts of our childhood experiences. We're drawing our insights today from a really excellent piece on the key YouTube channel called The Lifelong Effect of Childhood Trauma. And to really get into this, maybe let's start with a story. It's quite powerful, and I think it might resonate with, well, quite a few of you listening. Picture a boy. He grew up in a house that was never truly safe, but not unsafe, like you might think, no storms or obvious dangers. The danger was quieter, almost invisible. It came in the form of, as the source puts it, words left unsaid, hugs never given, questions never answered. You can almost see him, right? Sitting at the dinner table, maybe feeling this ache, wondering why he felt so invisible. Why nobody seemed to notice how hard he was trying to just smile. Nobody ever said, all right, you're unworthy. But the silence, the dismissal, the way glances just passed right through him.
Well, that message came through louder. So fast forward, that boy Greer maybe ships. Things look okay on the surface. Something still unfit. Child tug, whispering those old questions. And the truth is, he never stopped to ask. Questions just changed shape. They became the doubts in his relation, that unease and quiet moments that really exhaust, prove, and that is the lifelong echo of childhood trauma. And here's the key thing for our deep dive. It's not just about the big obvious. Our mission here is to explore the subtle, often hidden ways these early experiences using Key's insight.
Yeah, and what's truly fascinating and honestly quite heartbreaking about this material is how these invisible burdens, as you called them, just persist. We tend to dismiss them, don't we? We tell ourselves, oh, others had it worse, or come on, I should be over this by now. The brain, the nervous system, it just doesn't work like that. It doesn't compare notes. It really highlights the enduring impact of things that might seem small from the outside, and why understanding them is...
Okay, so let's unpack that. This idea of trauma not always being the big overt stuff. We often think, capital T, trauma, big events. But the source says trauma grows in the quiet space. Not always the loud bangs, but the emotional absence, small humiliation, moments love felt conditional, or safety wasn't guaranteed. These aren't the dramatic stories maybe, but their impact sounds like it's just as deep.
It absolutely is. And the reason why these subtle wounds are so impactful, it's because, like I said, the brain and nervous system don't rank trauma. Right, they don't compare. They only know what they felt right then. And that early feeling, being unseen, unsafe, whatever it was, that becomes a key phrase from the source, the script we carry for life. It gets etched in before we even have words for it. And what's really insidious is how that script then kind of directs the show. It influences how we see things, how we react decades later.
Wow, the script we carry for life. That's a heavy image. If it's etched in so deep, especially before language, how do we even notice it as adults? What does that look like day to day?
Well, this is where the neuroscience really helps ground it. It makes sense when you look at how we're built. The human brain, put simply, it's wired for survival first. That's priority. Then connection, then self-actualization comes last. And as kids, we are completely dependent, not just for food and shelter, the basics, but for literally shaping our nerve. Every look, touch, word, it's all calibrated. So when we're nurtured, our brain learns, okay, the world is basically safe, but when there's neglect, even subtle, it learns to. And the consequence when that vigilance becomes the default, our baseline setting, we become adults who are, as the source puts it, constantly scanning, constantly anticipating danger, even when there isn't any. So you might be sitting there having a nice evening talking to someone, but you're never truly present because part of you is always on alert, waiting for the other.
Like a background hum of anxiety.
Exactly, that you can't quite pin down.
And this gets even deeper, doesn't it, when we bring in the body itself?
Yeah.
You mentioned the nervous system, and there's that famous quote from Bessel van der Kolk, the body keeps the score.
Yes, a profoundly important idea.
It's not just a kitschy phrase, is it? It means trauma isn't just a memory up here, points to head. It lives in the body. It's like a language of sensations, a set of reflexes, a background hum of unease. Your nervous system, it doesn't check the calendar. If something felt dangerous when you were 5,
right,
your body might still react like it's 5, even when you're 45, unless you've done the work to heal it.
Yeah.
That's such a potent image, that feeling of playing the same song, hitting the same painful notes, even when everything else in your life has changed. The analogy used is really vivid. Imagine your mind as a record player. Childhood lays down the grooves.
Yeah, that's a good one.
If those grooves get carved with rejection or fear or neglect, well, if a record will keep playing the same melody over and over, you can change jobs, partners, cities, chase success.
Doesn't matter.
But that record keeps playing until you figure out how to lift the needle, how to interrupt that pattern consciously.
And we can actually see the effects. The brain changes are tangible. Research using MRI scans literally shows how these early experiences can reshape the brain. The amygdala, that's our emotional alarm system, it can become hyperactive, so constant anxiety.
Like a smoke detector stuck on high alert.
Exactly that, even with no smoke. Then the hippocampus, which helps us sort memories, tells us that was then, this is now. It can actually shrink, which makes it harder to tell past threats from present reality.
Oh.
And the prefrontal cortex, the brain's CEO for rational thought, impulse control, it can become less active, harder to calm the alarm, harder to make measured choices. So what's the takeaway for you listening? It means, and this is direct from the source, even as adults, we may react to a minor conflict with the intensity of a child facing a murder.
Wow.
And crucially, this isn't weakness. It's not being broken. It's adapt. Your brain did what it had to do to keep you safe in an environment where safety felt scarce. It was protective then.
But it can become a prison now.
Precisely. A prison of old adaptation.
That reframing adaptation, not brokenness, feels incredibly important.
Yeah.
But how does someone actually feel that shift?
Mm-hmm.
When your body is still sounding the alarm bells over, say, a minor disagreement at work, moving from knowing its adaptation intellectually to feeling, that seems like a big hurdle.
It is the hurdle, really. The intellectual understanding is the first vital step, absolutely. But calming that body-based reaction, that deep wiring, that takes a different approach, something we need to touch on more. It's about actively consciousing your nerve and what safe like now, not just telling yourself.
Okay, that makes sense. Now let's shift a bit and explore what the source calls the lifelong punishment of childhood trauma. And it's not just about the pain experience then, it's about what didn't get to happen.
Mm-hmm. The absence.
Yeah, the parts of yourself you never got to develop because you were too busy surviving. And what's really striking is how it's not just about losing those early chances, but how it then keeps dictating choices later on in love, work, identity.
Right.
Creating this sort of second layer of missed potential in adulthood. It's like a double theft, stealing from the past in the future. Just think about that. The playfulness that never had space to bloom.
Yeah.
The creativity that got stifled. The trust that never felt safe enough to grow. Trauma, in this sense, it steals possibilities. It leaves these quiet gaps, these absences.
An unnoticed step, too.
Exactly. But they profoundly shape our lives.
And this ties directly into certain adult behaviors, especially what we often see as overperforming. You know, adults who had that emotional neglect as kids, they often become high achievers, perfectionists, caretakers.
It's like resilience from the outside.
It absolutely does. And in many ways, it is a form of resilience, a coping strat. But underneath, as the source highlights, it's often driven by the same wound, the desperate need to earn the love that should have been given free. And here's the paradox trap. No amount of external success, validation, or achievement can truly fill that internal void left from child. So these individuals often end up feeling exhausted, disillusioned, quietly asking themselves that same old question, when will I finally come enough?
Oh, that exhaustion. It's palpable when you talk about it. It's not just tired from work exhaustion, is it?
No. It's deeper.
It's an emotional, almost spiritual depletion. Always pushing, always striving.
And the goalposts just keep moving. Because the real goal isn't external.
Right. It's an internal target they can't hit with external means.
Exactly. It's completely unsustainable, really. Rooted in a past feeling of not enough that no amount of present having, not without conscious work anyway.
Okay, but, and this is crucial, this isn't a life sentence. It's not hopeless. The really powerful message here is that healing is possible. Just like trauma can reshape the brain, so can healing, neuroplasticity. Right?
Precisely. Neuroplasticity. The brain's ability to rewire itself means that new patterns can be built even decades later.
So those grooves on the record player.
They can be shifted. It takes effort, conscious effort, but it is absolutely possible. And healing, the source clarifies, doesn't mean you erase the past. You can't pretend it didn't happen.
Right.
It means learning to carry it different, transforming that chain, as it were, into something closer to wisdom. You cannot change what happened to you, that's a fact, but you absolutely can change the relationship you have with it.
Moving from being a prisoner of the past
to becoming its interpreter, understanding its influence, but not being dictated by it.
Let's bring back that invisible boy we started with. How does this path look for him? As a man, he was stuck in those cycles, right? Chasing achievement, recognition, trying to fill that void. But the emptiness stayed until one day something clicked. He realized he wasn't really chasing success. He was chasing permission. Permission to believe he was finally worthy.
Yes.
And the huge realization was no one else could give him that. Not his boss, not a partner, nobody. He had to learn that the love you were denied cannot be replaced by achievement, attention, or even relationships. It has to be rebuilt from within.
And look, that might sound a bit like a platitude, something you see on a, inspirational poster.
Yeah, it can sound that way.
But it's not just sentiment, it's biology. It really is. When you consciously choose new patterns, when you practice self-compassion, when you actually let yourself rest without feeling guilty about it.
Which is hard.
Incredibly hard. Or when you set boundaries that felt impossible before, you are literally rewiring your brain. You're showing your nervous through experience that safety and worth aren't conditional. You're building a new reality, neuron by neuron.
We have to acknowledge, though, this is hard work.
Oh, incredible.
The source uses this great analogy. It's like walking out of a prison cell you've lived in for 30 years. The door's open, freedom's right there, but part of you hesitates.
Because the familiar, even if it's painful,
feels safer somehow than the unknown.
Right.
That's the paradox.
Yeah.
Healing often feels deeply uncomfortable at first because it is unfamiliar territory for your nervous system.
Okay, but let's open up something else here. A new loop, maybe. Because there's something profound in this that often gets missed. What if I told you that inside your trauma, buried within those adaptations, lies something the world actually desperately needs?
Okay, tell me more.
The very qualities you had to develop to survive. Think about it. Hyper-awareness, deep empathy, resilience, maybe even a powerful imagination. These can become incredible gifts when they're no longer fueled by fear. Let's make that concrete. The child who had to scan every room, read every microexpression just to feel safe.
Right.
They often grow into an adult with astonishing sensitivity, real intuition about people. The child who became a perfectionist to avoid criticism, they might develop an incredible capacity in their chosen craft, meticulous attention. And the child who escaped into imaginary worlds to cope with.
Right.
They often become the adults who beauty, art, build the...
That's a powerful reframe. But here's the crucial piece, right? These gifts only emerge when the wounds are faced, not ignored. Because unhealed, that sensitivity just stays anxiety, that empathy becomes draining people-pleasing. That resilience turns into burnout.
Exactly.
So healing isn't about getting rid of your story. It's about reclaiming the parts of yourself that were twisted by survival and giving them new expression.
Yeah. It's about harnessing the strength it took to adapt.
And choosing a new, healthier direction for it.
Oh, okay.
So if this deep dive is hitting home for you listening, if you're feeling that little tug of recognition, the big question is, how do you actually start? How do you begin to untangle these echoes? We need a roadmap. And the source gives us a really powerful one. Let's really get into these 4 actionable steps for healing.
Okay, first, acknowledge the child. And not just as a metaphor, literal. Take time to connect with that younger version of yourself. Remember their feelings, their needs, what they missed out. Neuroscience actually shows that doing this visualization, inner dialogue, can genuinely help repattern
So talking to your younger self isn't just woo-woo.
Not at all. When you offer compassion to that child part of you, you're essentially providing the attuned parenting that might have been missing. It could be writing a letter, finding a photo, or quiet.
Okay, step 1. Acknowledge the child. What's second?
Second, regulate the body. Keep coming back to this, don't we? Trauma lives in the nerve.
Right. Logic alone won't cut it.
Exactly. So practices that work directly with the body are things like breath work, just slow, deep breaths, mindfulness, gentle movement like yoga or tai chi, even simple grounding exercise, feeling your feet on the floor, noticing 5 things you can, reminding yourself, I am safe right now.
These things actually reteach the body safety.
Over time, yes. They help shift that baseline away from constant vigilance towards calm, little by little.
Got it. Acknowledge the child. Regulate the body. Third,
reframe the narrative. How do you tell your story? Instead of seeing yourself as permanently damaged or broken,
which is easy to fall into.
Try seeing yourself as someone forged in fire, someone who adapted and survived. Psychology shows us again and again. The stories we tell ourselves shape our reality. They become self-fulfilling.
So changing the story isn't denial, it's redirecting.
It's redirecting. It's choosing an empowering narrative. I survived, I adapted, and now I am free to choose differently. Your brain will start to organize itself around that new story if you practice. Challenge the old one, find evidence for the new one.
Okay, powerful. And the final step, number 4.
Finally, number 4, connect. Healing might start internally, but it's often completed in relationship.
Oh, so we don't have to do it all alone.
No, and we probably can't entirely. Studies consistently show supportive connection is one of the biggest predictors of recovery. And it doesn't have to be a whole village. It could be one trusted friend, a therapist, a partner, someone who really sees you, hears you, accepts you without judgment. That experience can literally help rewire those old relationships.
So seek out those safe connections. Allow yourself to be truly.
Yeah, even if it feels vulnerable. Especially then, the source talks about the lifelong punished trauma. But there's also, I think, a lifelong responsibility.
Okay.
And that's the responsibility to not hand that punishment down to the next generation.
Breaking the cycle.
Exactly, breaking the chain. Every single time you choose to face your own wounds instead of acting them out. Every time you pause before reacting out of that old script. Every time you offer compassion to yourself or someone else, you are doing that work.
You're changing the future in a way.
You really are. You're saying this pattern, this pain, it stops. And that choice, made over and over, ripples out.
And maybe that leads us to the ultimate provocative thought from this material. What if your trauma wasn't just something you survived? What if it was also an invitation? An invitation to live maybe more awake, more intentionally, more courageously than you ever would have if life had just been easy? What if those cracks in your story, parts that feel broken, what if they're not just scars? What if they're actually open through which light, and it doesn't excuse the pain, does it? It doesn't make what happened okay, but it reframes the meaning.
And
well, meaning is how we learn to live with what we can't change.
so for everyone listening, when you feel that echo, that old question from the inner child, am I good enough? Do I matter? Just pause. Don't brush it off. Turn towards that feeling and tell that part of you what they needed to hear all along. Yeah, you are enough. Yes, you matter, and I will not abandon.
Because at the end of the day, the punishment, that was never the whole story. It was only the prologue. The rest of the story
Yeah.
is yours to write.